I'd like to say hello to everybody. I'm Vince Mickens with all things aviation and aerospace, and this is pretty cool. I know I say everything's cool every week, but it is. We are live from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida, and we are with the Aviation Maintenance Sciences Department, and we're going to have a great discussion about opportunities in aviation maintenance, and we have a couple of students with us today who are shining stars for Embry-Riddle, and they're both juniors getting ready, rising seniors getting ready to take in that last year and then move out into the industry, which from what I've talked to them about, they're both looking forward to very much. I wanted to drop a couple of stats from the Boeing's pilot and technician outlook over the next 20 years. There's going to be a need for 763,000 pilots over 20 years and 739,000, yes, you heard me correctly, 739,000 maintenance technicians. That's worldwide. But in North America, that equates to 129,000 pilots, but more importantly for today's conversation, 123,000 technicians, which is about 6,000 technicians annually that are going to be needed. So I would say there was a small need for a few technicians out there. So it's apropos for us to talk today with one of the premier aviation universities that has, after I took my tour yesterday, I was like, yep, and they got a premier maintenance department on top of everything else. So let me start by introducing our guests, and we're going to jump right into a conversation about the opportunities there. Here. So I'll start with Eric Jones. Eric is the department chair. Eric, you can wave a little bit, of Aviation Maintenance Sciences of the College of Aviation. And he's going to have a lot to share with us about his background and his experiences, his path to here, and how he's helping the students here on their paths to careers in maintenance. We also have Neill Fulbright. Neill is the director of Avionics and Cyber Technology. Kind of got a kick out of hearing about that. That's something relatively new that's been added to the Aviation Maintenance Science Department. He is also an Embry-Riddle alum. So welcome to the show, guys. It's great to have you. And then the ones that you're rightfully proud of. We'll start with Sonish Joseph. Sonish is a rising senior, as I mentioned earlier. He's working on his Bachelor of Science in Aviation Administration, and my screen just went kaput on me. That's very nice. Thank you very much, Outlook, for jumping in front of my screen. Anyhow, he's working on his Bachelor of Science in Aviation Maintenance Science with a concentration in cybersecurity, and he's minoring in avionics. And we have Taya Galon. She is also a rising senior who's working on her Bachelor of Science in Aviation Maintenance Science with a concentration in safety. And as you can see, as I said, we're here at the Department of Aviation Maintenance Sciences, and we'll start out by talking a little bit about what areas of the department we're in. We're in several labs, and so I want to talk about that. And I think I'll start that out with Taya to tell a little bit about the lab that Eric and I are in, the turbine lab.
So like he said, he's in turbine lab. So in there we have a couple of turbines. So starting from the left-hand side, we have the TF35, which is normally used on the A10s. And then we go to the JT8Ds, which used to be on the Douglas MD-80s. And then behind that, to the right of that one, we have our commercial Boeing engines, which would be the CFM56s. And then behind Eric Jones, we have our turbines that we actually take apart and put back together. So those are the, I believe the Sonish, what were they again?
They were the J34s, Westinghouse so, J34s.
Those are on the stilettos, which would be the Douglas X3s. So in the turbines class, we actually take them apart, put it back together, do inspections, and then we run them up. So the class basically is a pass or fail for the run up. So you either pass when your engine starts, it works perfectly, or you fail and you just didn't put it back together, and Hancock.
Got to start all over again.
Yep. You got to go start all over again. Hancock will explain like, hey, maybe this is the situation. What would you have done differently to fix it? and then that's pretty much the whole class.
And as a professor, both Eric and Neill are kind of smiling, and they're like, "Yeah, that's what you got to do. That's how you learn here." Eric,
it's got to work.
It's interesting that your department is called Aviation Maintenance Sciences. Can you tell us a little bit, give us an overview of what that's about?
Sure, Vince. And I want to welcome you, obviously, to Embry-Riddle and definitely to the Aviation Maintenance Science Department. One of the great portions of our university here is that Aviation Maintenance Science is a legacy program. We touch all parts of aviation maintenance and technical operations. You're talking about taking an airplane that has hydraulic systems, pneumatic systems, high technology avionics, high bypass turbofan engines. And the reason why we call it a science is because we have to maintain all of these different systems and keep them operating safely and efficiently. And with oversight from the FAA, we also have to make sure that they're maintained legally as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to Sonish, I'm sorry. I keep wanting to call you by your last name. we already had that conversation yesterday. No, Sonish, tell us, you're in the avionics department, our lab. So tell us a little bit about that.
So behind me, you can see we're in the Avionics Line Maintenance Lab. This lab is a very hands-on laboratory. When you come in, you actually start with an empty cart and you learn about the old six-pack systems and build the legacy system. So your transponders, GPS, all the instruments that require for navigation, communication, we actually wire them from scratch. And so going through this program, you learn the ins and outs of various instruments from various manufacturers. And we also go deeper as to learning the science behind it. So things like data bus readings is how these instruments communicate with each other, ups and downs, ones and zeros. And so we have instruments that are scattered across the lab in which we take all these recordings and then compare it with manufacturer manuals to give out readings of what each instrument is saying. So fuel quantity, you have this many gallons from this reading, or altitude or location. And so going through this program, you get 3 certifications out of it that prepares you for avionics, both on the old system as well as new modern system like Garmin, Plainview, and other proprietary softwares.
Okay, so you guys have some really smart students here, Eric and Neill. Wow, I had to really focus and concentrate on what he was saying. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm not kidding about them being very smart, but I'm kidding about me focusing. But that's for another time, me in school. Neill,
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the lab that you're in and about what you teach.
Well, thank you very much, Vincent. So thanks for coming here. We're really happy to have you. The lab that I'm in right now is it's really tied to 3 classes. I'd have to spin it around to show you all the equipment in here, but we have general aviation, electrical, and air transponder electrical, and power plant electrical. Some of the stuff that you're seeing behind me, these are troubleshooting boards that were actually built here by our faculty. So they can induce faults. Behind it is like the man behind the curtain. There's all kinds of switches and things back there where they can flip those and induce all kinds of faults. So they learn, they get a really good fundamental background in electrical troubleshooting. So they would go through these 3 classes that are tied to this lab, and then they would then they go to the lab that Sonish is in right now.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about your background, because one of the things that is very clear here is that all of the professors at Embry-Riddle come from very extensive backgrounds in their specialties, whatever it may be. In your case, you specialize in aviation, avionics, et cetera. So why don't you tell us how you got into aviation? Let's take it back a little bit and tell us about your history with aviation.
Go back to the beginning.
Well, you can skip the toddler stage, but unless you were hooking, if you were wiring things and you were 2 years old, that's impressive.
I think that all starts with everybody. You take things apart and you can't put them back together, right? And then
exactly.
And then that's where the interest comes. You really want it to work, and so you got to figure out how to put it back together. But just to briefly start, I kind of started off taking pilot's lessons, and then I really kind of fell in love with the technology behind the airplane more than I did the flying of the airplane. So, and that kind of got me started on, well, I kind of like to work on this.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 19.
Okay. And so you started taking flying lessons because you thought you'd like to become a pilot, and you were more interested in how the plane worked that you were flying in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I wanted to know how it worked. And that was, to me, that it was more interesting than the actual flying. And so, and that's what started it. I said, well, how do I learn how to work on these things? How to learn how to put them back together? I'm pretty sure I can tear them apart. And so I went to A&P school. And I went to A&P school, and then I went to start working general aviation for a little bit. Spent about a year doing that at a Piper service center in Texas, and then I got recruited by the airlines, and I went to a major airline, and I did all kinds of things there. I did hydraulics, I did rigging, but really fell in love with the electronics. Those guys just interested me. They were up there in the flight deck, and it was just it seemed magical. So I went back to school and to learn how to learn the electronics part of it, which we call avionics. At that time, it's called radio and electric. We were called R&Es. Now we're called avionics.
Yeah, at that time they had Radio Shack too. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. That's right. So I went back and did that. I went back to school, did that, got a certification, and started working avionics. Eventually, I even taught a little bit for the airline I worked for, but I was teaching a computer management information system, not even aviation. I wanted to go back into aviation and avionics, and did that. And well, I ended up leading a crew that worked on. We had chronic troubleshooting projects. So if the guys on the line, the avionics guys on the lines couldn't fix it, they would drop it dead and bring it to our crew, my crew, and then we would troubleshoot it until it got fixed and got returned to service. They all did. I'm proud to say they all made it back out into service. Sometimes it would take a little while to find the problems, but so the troubleshooting part really kind of led me to, short story, this kind of led me to here. When I came here, I started this avionics line maintenance program, which is now 20 years running. And I had really one goal for my technicians when they leave my program, and that was to be able to troubleshoot any system on any aircraft, whether they knew anything about that system when they walked in that morning or not. And so that was the skill set that I wanted them to have when they left here. And so that's my expectation of my students, and they've all done very well. Sonish is a testament to that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree. I mean, I can tell you right now, like Mr. Fulbright has hit the goal, because as you go through the ALM program here, one of the projects that continues just reverberating through the program to future students is called the Boeing project. And it's various scenarios that Mr. Fulbright himself has encountered in the field, and he gives it to us so that we can analyze them and figure out what the fault is. And so for me, it's been a great source of learning how to troubleshoot properly and how to tackle a problem in a whole new different perspective. And it's been great ever since, in the field and out the field.
Yeah, you shared that with me on the tour yesterday, and there's a lot of detail in what you have to do on both the avionics and the mechanical side, and there's a lot of focus in this department on that. So I think that's well said. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Neill, is where was it? The reason I'm bringing this up is transitions are something that a lot of students go through. And what I mean by that is that they come in with one thought and they may end up moving in another direction. You were fascinated with the mechanics of aircraft, so you went that direction, but then there was a point when you were more interested in the electronics aspect. How long were you in A&P before you said, you know what, I want to move this in another direction?
Well, I was about between when I got interested in it and when it happened was a couple of years, because it did. I had to go back to school and learn the electronics part of it. I wasn't able to just jump right into it. So it interested me enough that it motivated me to go back to school and to learn the electronics of what I wanted to do. So like I said, I started off wanting to fly, then fell in love with working on it, and then really fell in love with the electronic side of it.
Yeah. Sonish, you are very passionate. Both of you and Tay are very passionate about what you guys are learning and what your future is for careers in maintenance. Tell us how you got interested in aviation and your background of growing up and how you started.
You can go ahead, Taya.
Okay, so I actually live here locally, well, locally as in Orlando, and I live about like maybe 10 minutes from the Orlando Sanford Airport. So I used to watch as a kid the aircrafts come on final and just wonder how they actually fly. I mean, you see these big things that are like taller than me, who's 5'2", flying through the sky, and you're like, man, that holds 100 people plus bags. There's no way that can fly. Should it be physically possible? So I kind of fell in love with aviation at that point. And then the whole maintenance side of it came in when I was a diesel tech. And I mean, aviation and then aviation maintenance, where I get my diesel technician stuff from, kind of just fell together.
Rewind a little bit. You just threw diesel tech out there like, yeah, and I was a diesel tech. And then I thought, yeah, I'll fix airplanes. Tell us a little bit more about being a diesel tech and the transition.
I was a diesel tech for waste management is where I used to work. And I mean, it's fun to work on garbage trucks. It really is. I mean, being hands-on troubleshooting, taking things apart was something that I really like to do. I can't sit in the office. I can't, just be like some people can be pilots. I could not do that. I mean, I wanted to do aviation was like my end goal, was that's the one thing I wanted to do. So then I heard about aviation maintenance. And then Embry-Riddle has known as a Harvard of the sky. There's no place better you can get an aviation experience. So then I started doing this program, and I haven't looked back since.
Eric's writing you a scholarship check right now on the side. The point well taken. I guess I was curious as to, did you have training for a diesel tech before you started doing it as a job and then discovered aviation maintenance?
So my mom actually works for the same company as me.
Okay.
So I actually used to go into the shop as like maybe 10 and just watch the mechanics work on them. And then I kind of just like interned with them and was part of a Labor Ready, which is the contracting company I worked with.
Wow.
And so I just worked with them and then started to do the actually taking apart certain things, doing PMs on the trucks. And that's how it all started. Yes, preventative maintenance on the trucks.
Yeah, wow. That's kind of neat. That means you just had a kind of a natural feel for it. And what a way to learn, right there, kind of OJT on the job. So and so now you've been at Embry-Riddle for 3 years.
I have. Yeah,
and give us an idea of some of the things that you've learned being here and what you see in terms of your future as an aviation maintenance technician.
I hate to say that I learned a lot, because a lot of people say that, but I definitely have. I mean, you see things that you think, oh man, anybody can do that, and then you actually start doing it and you're like, man, this is a little bit harder. Everything that you kind of take for granted, like maybe a torque wrench is out of calibration, you're like, whatever, it's a torque wrench, it should do its job. But in reality, that torque wrench in whatever aircraft you worked on is grounded. And it's mind-boggling that you have so much power in a sense, because no matter whatever you do stays with that aircraft, it affects that aircraft, it affects the company and how you look as a technician. I mean, there's no real other job that affects you so much personally as aviation maintenance, because lives are on the line when you're doing this, but looking at the aircraft and understanding how it works and is also just fantastic, because you're never, even if you're a pilot, you're never going to fully understand how that aircraft works. You're going to understand, oh, the prop turns. Okay, cool. I'm in the air. Okay. But when you get to, as a technician, you're like, okay, so the prop has to turn this many times. And if they were to have like this small nick, I have to figure out how am I going to be able to make sure my customer can still fly that aircraft without spending $3,000 on a new prop.
Right.
It's insane and it's fun. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, so that brings up a really great point. I'm going to go to Eric on this one to talk a little bit of the overview of the department, in the sense that, again, I took this tour, and I've been in aviation all of my adult life. So since high school, and so I'm looking at aviation and okay, I come to Embry-Riddle. Yes, we know it's a great school and everything, but I have to admit, when I came through this maintenance department, I was really blown away by the fact that it actually covers every aspect that you can think of, whether it's learning how to deal with riveting and composites and things like that, or the electronics, or the different types of engines, propellers, landing gear, on, and even a test facility outside where you can actually test what you put together, that pass or fail thing you were talking about earlier, and everything. And Eric, can you speak to that a little bit, and tell us a little bit more about how it's designed to help these young students progress in their careers in maintenance?
Absolutely, Vince. And I think you did a really good job of characterizing exactly what the students go through here. And Taya and Sonish clearly are outstanding students. Professor Fulbright does an outstanding job with our students, but it's all about calibrating, right? So you're taking a basic concept or theory, and we instill in the students that basic concept of theory. Say in Neill's discipline, that would be electricity and how electricity works. And then we're going to add on top of that, and we're going to take it to another level of, okay, electricity can pass through lots of different conduits. It's not just through wires. Electricity can pass. You can send signals through lots of different mediums, fiber optic. Now we have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. There's lots of different ways that we can transfer all this information. And we have to teach our students all of that. So it's not just what the requirements of the FAR Port 147 are. We also have to teach what the students are going to see when they get out to the industry. And that technology, Vince, it's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. So we take them absolutely from the very beginning, where they know nothing except that they have a love and a passion for aviation. And then their next step is that basic theory, and then we begin to build on that. And then, Neill did a very good job of talking about this, is then troubleshooting. Well, what could possibly go wrong on this airplane, and how do you identify where those things that went wrong are? And then how do you repair them? How do you repair them safely? How do you repair them effectively? And how do you repair them, legally? So we're asking a lot. You started this webinar, this program, talking about the need for aviation maintenance technicians. Well, Professor Fulbright and I had the privilege of sort of going through the airlines, but we started out on a much softer technology, if you will, like a general aviation airplane. Taya spoke about working on a diesel engine. You work on that technology, and then you go to another level. And then you're able to learn at that level, and then you go to a commuter airline, and you're going to work at on some de Havilland Dash 8s or some other prop airplanes, now Embraers or even Challengers. You could go to corporate, but the next step is then you're going to an airline, and an airline is completely different, a different experience and a different level of sophistication. And I think one of the things I wanted to illustrate when you were speaking was, these students have to do that much earlier because the demand is so much higher. Right. So I think what's really impressive, Vince, is just what you said, is you're listening to Sonish talk, and you're sort of blown away with the sophistication of language that he utilizes, and even Taya talking about some of the things that she uses. But this is a language that our students have to have when they get out to the industry and actually start to contribute and be a part of the aviation ecosystem that we all enjoy.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that was again part of the tour that I had with Sonish. And Sonish, one of the questions I asked him is, I said, well, now things have gotten so technologically sophisticated. Boy, that was a mouthful. But they have. How does the school? What do they teach you about that? And Sonish, you rode right into it, and tell me a little bit about that level that you guys experienced, as you said, going into your senior year.
So going through this program, like it said, it's structured in a way you start from the basic, you go into advanced theory, like level classes, and then the final class comes down to your troubleshooting, your repairing, and everything. So going to the advanced technological concept, one of the last classes you complete through the program is a line maintenance class, where we have the various test stands and test facilities. And it's like a timeline of different engines. We have reciprocating engines that use a much older carbureted fuel injection system. Then we go to a newer the modern ones that flight schools and various owners use. And for each level of technology advances, we do troubleshooting scenarios. Now, coming to the whole aspect of like now being involving computers and technology, we can take the Diamond engines, for example, the DA-42s, they use Ostra engines, and these engines are completely computer controlled. The term for it is FADEC. And with it being completely controlled, maintenance techs, we need to know how to use a computer and connect it to our engines, read whatever diagnostic codes it gives to us, and then interpret what repairs we need to make. It's very similar to how our cars operate these days, where you connect your OBD scanner into it to try and see what fault code comes out whenever you get a check engine light. Similarly, we have diagnostic codes and errors that tells us, hey, this airplane is sick, it needs help. And so as computers, I like to think ourselves as doctors of engines and airplanes. I think it's just really cool. And so go in, put in our computer and say, how you doing today? Let's get you back up in the air. It's how I treat it. And when it's all said and done, the customer is happy, the airplane is happy, the airplane is not angry at you screaming various beeping chimes and alarms, everyone's happy. So going through this program, we have various steps, and the final step being incorporating technology like computers and stuff into troubleshooting power plants, and then like behind me, the avionics, being able to test all the equipment and seeing that they're communicating with each other.
Sure. Taya, coming from the diesel mechanic world, have you found that fascinating too, the technology that you've been learning here?
For sure. I mean, a lot more computer based is what I've been seeing with aviation. There are some computers in the diesel world, but not really. I mean, because most of the stuff we're now transitioning to CNG, which is natural gases. So I mean, it's a lot more interesting here because it's a lot more troubleshooting on the part. Like Sonish said, line maintenance is 100% just troubleshooting, and it's going through from your normal recips all the way up to your turbine engines, where he's going to throw something at you, and you're going to be like, well, if this is what's causing it, well, it could be A, B, C, or D. But which one's the more likely to be causing it? It might be B. And he's like, okay, so go try B, and B might not be it. It might be C, the one that you didn't think of that is kind of stupid, and you're like, nah, that can't be it. But it probably is, because knowing Bacone, it's always the one thing you don't see. That's always him.
And when she says Bacone, I think it's important to note that that's Professor Bacone,
yes,
who runs that course. And it is, and all of you said it perfectly. I mean, you're upping the ante, and mitigating the safety issues. So it's not just take apart, put it on an engine, and you're done. It's take it apart, put the part up back on the engine, do an operational check, and then you're going to take the airplane out and you're actually going to physically run it. So it's that extra level of intensity, if you will, extra level of importance that's put on the operation that's really critical. And Vince, if you'll indulge me a second, I do want to
Sure.
talk about what Sonish was discussing.
Yes.
Data is, I mean, I know it's a buzzword right now, but there is a lot of talk and there's a lot of research being done on predictive analytics. And that is to say that you could be flying an airplane, and the pilot may be able to look down and see that his engine is running a little bit hot. And well, is that a real indication from a sensor that's showing that it's running a little bit hot? Could it be a bad sensor? Well, utilizing a network, which Professor Fulbright teaches, you can actually go in and troubleshoot that engine while the plane is in flight. And perhaps someday you'll be able to do a software patch fix that will go in and be able to fix that airplane while it's flying. So predictive analytics, data, what we do with all that data is really going to help keep those airplanes up and flying. And it's important that students know that that's something that they're probably going to be challenged with at some point in their career. So predictive analytics and data it's not going to change. And when I say it's not going to change, it's in taking all of that data and knowing what to do with it is really critical for us in maintaining the aircraft and maintaining these engines. So it's how we filter it and how we analyze it that's going to be more important going into the future.
Yeah, I think that's important. And we're also moving more towards, so you guys had mentioned the maintenance for the airlines, but the other area is corporate aviation or business aviation, which also has the most sophisticated aircraft now out there. When you start talking about Gulfstream 650s and some of the others and Dassault Falcons, et cetera. I probably should name them all now so I can stay out of trouble. And the Cessna and no, but they're very sophisticated aircraft that have FADEC and everything else you can think of, and have Garmin has taken avionics to a whole nother level. Now I have to mention Honeywell. I better stop doing that. Anyhow, but my point about it is that there all of these different areas, whether it's the airlines with their new aircraft or business aviation with their new aircraft, are in that already in that area of having very sophisticated technology. And then we talked about it a little bit yesterday, Neill, in terms of the connectivity. Actually, I talked with you and Eric about that, but connectivity and the sophistication of it, and you spend a lot of time with Satcom Direct and some of the other companies out there that specialize in that. You want to talk about that a little bit, and maybe we can segue a little bit into cybersecurity that's becoming more and more an issue at the forefront.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd love to talk about it. It's we with the connectivity part, we used to, just to back up a little bit, we used to have, you know, we had avionics technicians, and if it wasn't enough to learn to be and be good at being an avionics technician and troubleshooting, now you have to also be a network administrator. So we've we wanted to, we tried to do this for a while, and Satcom Direct actually have been a great partner helping us get this part of it, the network part of it, the connectivity part of it, into our program. And so, and we actually teach one of their certifications, their ERAU IT, Satcom Direct's ERAU IT, which is an aviation information technology certification. So our technicians, when they leave, not only they fluent in avionics, but they're also fluent in network installation, management, protection, you know, basically a network administrator. They have to know, you know, the wireless part of it, the wired part of it, you know, like your home network. Think of your home network at a little more sophisticated level on an aircraft to an enterprise level. So it's a little bit more complicated on an aircraft than at your home. So if you think of your home network, you know, everybody when they get on an airplane, you know, they want this to work, especially in corporate aviation, like you're talking about. You know, the principals flying in the corporate aviation are, they have to be connected 24/7, seamlessly connected to the servers back at their headquarters. So now they're taking what would have been a protected server intranet system, and they're taking it and they're VPNing in, and they're taking this and putting it in a mobile platform. And so that comes with the whole set of risks and vulnerabilities. So we have to, you know, we have to go through that. For example, your home network has one connection to the internet. You have an internet service provider, whoever that may be. I'm not going to even start mentioning names there. But on an airplane, you could have 5 different connections to the internet. You could have cellular. You could have, you know, you'd be going through geostationary satellites. You could be going through geosynchronous satellites. You could be going air to ground, you know, to cell towers. So, you know, our technicians now are being tasked with having to manage all of those different WAN connections, and not only managing them, but maybe prioritizing which one. You know, you're on the ground, you want the cellular to work. You start to get in the air, you want the SATCOM systems to work, and then you get a little above, you want to go cheaper, you want the air ground to work. And then they're even prioritizing when, you know, what ground stations, you know, they're going to communicate, when they're going to communicate with this, maybe a geofencing, so shut down over certain areas. You know, you think about it this way. So if you go through, they'll say your neighborhood, right? You go through your neighborhood, and you know, everybody's outside and everybody's Everybody's listening to what you're saying, and you're walking and you're having a conversation. You may not want to have that conversation in front of some people. So, it's the same thing on airplanes. We may want to shut those conversations down over certain parts of the world, to protect that information. So we're not only, that comes down to, cybersecurity, but it's really information security too, as well. So.
Your mute's on.
I think
Mine?
I muted myself and didn't unmute myself. Sorry about that.
Oh.
I was just going to say, when I have my microphone on properly, no, I was going to say that
great troubleshooting, Sonish.
Yeah, great troubleshooting, very quick too.
See, yeah, we're very proud of him.
Yeah, we are, and I'm very embarrassed, but that's beside the point. No, I was going to say, I was going to piggyback off of what you were saying, and I think the security aspect is now even more prevalent and is really, really important. From a couple of perspectives, and maybe you want to elaborate on it. So one is information, and this is security of information, because you have high-ranking people, whether it's C-suite executives or whatever the case may be, or it's in the case of military, but you have high-ranking individuals that are passing along information that has to be secure, and they have to know that no one can get to that except who they want to hear it. But the other part of it is just for their safety, the security aspect of that. Can you touch in on that a bit?
So there's really, kind of two. Yeah, I definitely can. So, and this is really going to fall to our technicians that are managing these systems on these airplanes, specifically corporate, with what you're talking about, where you've got the principals, the C-level people flying. They want to be connected. They have to be connected. Taking an extra minute to make a decision on certain things can cost a lot of money. They also don't want to be inconvenienced with, multi-tier security processes. So now our technicians are also, they're teaching how these things work, and they're trying to set them up in a convenient, seamless way, so they can get on this airplane or get on the other airplane. Everything automatically connects. But yet it's also secure. So, we're running into that.
Well, some of them even want to take a technician on the flight, especially if they're doing a long flight of, halfway around the globe or whatever, and they will sometimes take a technician with them, so that if anything happens, that technician, whether it's a mechanical or an electronic issue or whatever, can take care of it. I'm talking, of course, about corporate that does that quite a bit.
This is definitely corporate, and you're saying sometimes, but I know certain flight departments that's every time now.
It's standard, right? Exactly.
It's standard now. When in the early days, I will say, of this connectivity, which was probably just a couple of years ago, wasn't long, but in the early days of this, you might have a crew member or an attendant that knew some of the basics of, well, what happens if I can't, my tablet's not connecting, how do I deal with that? Now it's so much more sophisticated than that they're actually taking, you got flight techs that are going on board now, and they're going on board to deal with the connectivity issues that they may have, or to make sure they don't have any.
Professor Fulbright and Professor Jones, can you guys talk a little bit about, so you have a lot of students that come through here that are, as they come through your school, they're trying to think about they're thinking about what they're going to do in the maintenance career. And the reason I'm bringing this up is from the standpoint of, how do you guide them as to whether they go the direction of the airline or go business aviation or other, something more specific and specialized, like working for Pratt and Whitney or GE engines, or working for Garmin or things like that. How do you guys guide them on that?
You want me to take that, Barry?
Sure, absolutely.
So the easy answer is we don't guide them. The nice thing is that we have so many different companies from so many different parts of the industry that, and we tend, especially the airline guys, we tend to think of airlines and then corporate, but we have unmanned aerial systems that come in here. We have the space industry, which is just south of us, about an hour, and they'll come in and hire everybody. So, and then you got the airlines. The airlines, and major airline was just here as well. They get exposure to all these different parts of the industry, and they get to kind of, they may not even know where they want to go yet. And then they see something like they can go to the space industry, like, wow, I'd really like to do the space. I'd work in the space industry, or I never knew there was really that much technology on big airplanes, and that sounds fascinating. You know, when you hear the stories of the people that work in these different parts of the industry, and they can directly relate what they do to the students. They kind of get the exposure of everything and get to pick and choose what they want.
Yeah, Eric, you want to piggyback on that?
I do. Yeah, and Neil's exactly right. There really is. It's a spectrum of things that our students can do, and often what we would probably call the Embry-Riddle advantage is a lot of those entities ended up coming here to campus and recruiting our students, and they get the opportunity to see. I was a pilot too. That's what I wanted to start out doing. And, you know, I ended up going into technical operations and the maintenance field. And I don't regret it for a minute. And I think that many of our students go through that same sort of experience where they think they're going to be an aerospace engineer or a pilot. And then they get here and they're like, wait, so what is urban air mobility? What is that? Well, it's this new, you know, urban air, unmanned aerial systems. There's so many different places this career can take you, and I'm always amazed, especially students like Sonish and Taya, in the directions that they're going to go, and they're going to end up emailing us in 10 years and saying, "Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks. I'm working for Blue Origins on their commercial space operations," and you're like, I never thought somebody would go there. So
proud moment for a professor.
It is a proud moment, and it simulates exactly what Neill and I did in our careers. We started out, there was, you know, the highest level of technology that you would think of would be a 747, and then the 777 came along, and then the 787 came along, and all this technology keeps moving. But what our students are going to see in the next 30 years of their career is not even, it's going to completely transform the aviation industry and how people get from point A to point B, and we have to prepare them for that. So Neil's not wrong. We don't have to mentor them. They mostly figure out what the direction that they want to go.
With all the opportunities out there. Eric, how'd you get started? How'd you get into aviation?
Thanks. That's a loaded question, Vince. Appreciate that. So I always wanted to be around aviation. I didn't know what path to go to get there. I ended up joining the United States Navy. I enlisted and chose aviation as my path. I started out as a structural technician for them, working on C-130s in Antarctica and New Zealand, and then got out of and used my benefits to go to college and do my flight ratings. I did my flight ratings, and it was around that sweet spot, Vince, and I'm sure that you'll remember the mid 90s when there wasn't a heck of a lot of pilot training, pilot jobs, even flight instructing jobs. So I had my AMT license from the military. I ended up working at a commuter airline to put some food on our table, and I really never looked back. I enjoyed it so much. The people, you know, it's not you surely don't do it for the pats on the back. I like to say that the best time that when we're doing our jobs absolutely perfectly, you never see us. You'll never see us on an airplane. We're not going to be the people that greet you when you get on or get off, or you say nice landing or bad landing. But you know, my tagline whenever I would go up on an airliner and someone would say, "Is something wrong with the airplane?" I would say, "Well, I'm just working on a coffee maker." Because you didn't want anyone to worry about what was going on with the airplane.
Right.
But so there's a humility about what we do, and I think so. I ended up working for the same airline that Neill did for a period of time, and then I moved on to another one. Was there for 16 years, and then finished a master's degree, and ended up coming into academia where I started to teach, and then worked my way up to department chair, and I love every minute of it. It's a wonderful career. If you were to ask me 30 years ago if this is what I was going to be doing, I would have said you were crazy, Vince.
Right.
But
I hear you on that.
Aviation is just one of those. It's a transformative experience, and it's great that somebody with a high school diploma can walk into a place like this and figure out and succeed and go to these amazing careers, go on to these amazing careers. And I'm really just a byproduct of aviation. It's a wonderful experience.
You had mentioned earlier when we were talking too that you've had students come from other areas, and you kind of alluded to that just a second ago, where they were on a track in Embry-Riddle in aerospace engineering or something like that, or even a professional pilot track, and they discovered about maintenance that drew them here, and they decided to actually switch majors, if I understood you correctly, and get a degree in aviation maintenance science. Can you speak to that?
I can, Vince. I would say that, one of the great things about college, or even the military for that matter, is you not only learn what you want to do, but you also learn what you don't want to do. So maybe you say you want to become a pilot, and you start taking courses, and it just isn't what you expected. But you're at that university, and you've met someone who is in another course field, AMT or AMS, and and you're intrigued. So we get a lot of students that come in that want to be AMTs. Most of them are veterans that come from the military. They've already done work in the field, and we're very proud of our veteran students here at Embry-Riddle and the work that they do in the classroom. But then also we get students that go into aerospace engineering, and they're working in heavy math, heavy calculus, heavy physics. And they realize at the end of that, they're going to be working in a cubicle behind a computer, maybe working collaboratively as a team to develop some technology. And it just isn't what they want. They want to be
hands-on.
They want to be in a lab where they're working with their hands. They want to. Many carpenters that I talk to will say that one of the best things about being a carpenter is at the end of the day, there's something that you tangibly left. When you leave work that day, there's some progress that you made. And there is a great deal of satisfaction when you fix an airplane and, somebody is able to go to a wedding. Somebody is able to go to a business meeting, get a job, and you're providing them that service by fixing their airplane and allowing them to go safely to their destinations.
Sure.
So we do get a lot of students from all over the spectrum. The great thing about Embry-Riddle is if you come to Embry-Riddle, your primary focus is usually aerospace and aviation. So we're at least in a corridor of what your interests are. And I think that everyone on this webinar who's listening to this webinar, aviation is often more a passion than it is just an interest. So
I was going to say, before I go back to your students to ask them another question, I wanted to ask both you and Neill something. What drew both of you to academics to make you say, you wanted to come to a school like Embry-Riddle and teach and lead in that area?
I'm going to let Neill talk about that one first.
Well, I didn't want to. No, I don't know. I guess, most of us that do this are probably crazy, but I kind of planned on, I did. So I had a brief teaching thing with the airline I worked for. Like I said, I didn't teach aviation though. I actually taught a computer system, and I kind of enjoyed it. So I thought, well, maybe, I'd want to teach later, later in my career. Now, one of the encouraging people in my life was that there was an electricity teacher at the A&P school that I went to, and he was so good at doing that. And then he would hire me to help him go work on airplanes. He was also an IA, and we'd do work on little airplanes on the weekends and stuff. And I guess he was so encouraging to me that it kind of left a good impression on me that, hey, teaching is really maybe the pinnacle of your career. And so I did kind of always have it in my mind that I wanted to do it. I didn't plan on doing it, starting it in my 30s, or let's say I started at 6 years old. No, Starting in my 30s. I kind of planned on
Very
doing
talented,
it later.
very talented.
Oh yeah, you know.
Gifted at youth.
No, so I started it in my 30s. I didn't really plan on doing that. I planned on doing it later in my career, but the opportunity came up, and I actually left the airline I was working for at a great time, thinking I made a huge mistake, and I didn't. I've loved every minute I've been here.
And you've been here for 20 years, so there you go.
20 years, and mostly because of the students. You know, when you hear, I tell you, and you hear Sonish talk. You know, I was listening to Sonish a little while ago with pride. You know, these are students. They're not even in the industry yet, and you hear them, and they are talking the talk and walking the walk, and I'm listening, going, wow, I'd hire him. I'd hire her.
I thought the same thing.
It sounds impressive. I know
Yeah.
there's employers out there listening to this going, well, that's pretty, yeah, it's impressive. So
it is.
So we can say all we want as educators, and we can tell you what we do. We can tell you, but when you see the product, Sonish talking and able to articulately describe what he's learned and what they've done, and you know, and they remember it. That's
sure.
You know, that's why we do it. That's why I do it.
Yeah, Sonish, I want to make sure that we don't run out of time, and I don't have an opportunity to talk to you about how you got the aviation bug and how you picked Embry-Riddle. It was an interesting background you shared.
Yeah, so I grew up in Nigeria, West Africa, and houses, everything over there is run primarily by generators. And so growing up, I took apart a lot of stuff, but I didn't know how to put it back together. And so it was,
like
I
one
was
of your
always,
professors.
It's a reoccurring theme.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a theme that keeps on happening. But I was more interested in putting it back together. And so my dad, obviously, seeing all of this, was like, let me put you to work. And so my dad and I would go out and fix generators. So the generators, after running a lot of cycles, would break down, something would go bad. I'd sit with him, and that's where I started getting a lot of technical aptitude. And once I reached my sophomore year of high school, I realized that I was going through various careers like engineering, I knew management. What did I like? What did I love? And I realized the common theme for me was aviation, because I've traveled to various countries, and I've just been around airplanes a lot because of how much I traveled with my family between Nigeria and India. And so I started doing my research, and when I did my research, I came across Riddle's website, and how Taya said, Harvard of the skies, the Embry-Riddle advantage that was here. So in 2016, I applied for a summer camp. Summer camps were being offered here. At Riddle, I applied for a summer camp called the Aerospace Career Exploration, and they took me around all the various facilities and majors that were offered here. And I came through this building, I met one of the instructors, and done deal, signed, sold.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Signed, sealed, delivered. And so I went back, finished my my last 2 years of high school, working to get here. And once I got here, I never regretted it. I knew I wanted to fix it. I was able to take apart the airplane, understand every component, put it back together, return it to service, and everyone's happy. I have a passion for flying too, but it was gut instinct that told me, hey, why don't you just understand the airplane completely, and then now that you know how everything works, go fly. That way, the end goal is eventually I want to be able to fix and fly my own airplane. I want to have my own hangar, have my own airplane, do maintenance, and share this wonderful joy of aviation to everyone around me.
So you took me to my next question, which is, I'll rephrase it. I was going to ask you what your goals are. That's an ultimate goal. To reach that goal, what are you looking forward to? You're an upperclassman. You're getting ready to finish up your senior year next year and graduate. What do you hope to do once you leave Embry-Riddle?
So like Mr. Jones and Mr. Fulbright mentioned, they didn't need to guide us. And so the one thing that hit me is when I came to the States and when I came to this university and all these companies started coming, and all the experience from all the various teachers, I realized that I have more than the airlines to choose from. I have military, I have space, I have corporate aviation, I have the airlines, so on and so forth, contracting. And so throughout my academic career here, I just started getting this inclination towards business aviation. Private jets are amazing. And so in terms of career, Yeah, it's just something else. They're all fancy, they're all good, and they're very technologically advanced, like you mentioned, and it's always stimulating for me. So for me, in terms of a career standpoint, my end goal after I graduate is to eventually be able to join some sort of corporate aviation company, rising through the ranks to end up as an AOG technician, an aircraft on ground technician. These are the people that where an aircraft is put down in an area where there's no maintenance facility, a crew is sent out to fix the aircraft, make sure it's good to go, and sent off. And so being able to be on the call, on the go, troubleshooting in my mind as I fly or drive to the location, so that once I get to the location, I can fix the airplane, send it out. So the end goal is to be an AOG technician for a business aviation field, being able to get all the experience and everything I need to eventually um, get my own airplane and start working and sharing. And throughout this process, it's a passion of mine to be able to share it to students around. So during my career here at the university, I've attended talks. I've been here. We have a class here called University 101 where we help freshman college students succeed in their college career. And so I do my part in helping students ensure that they have a good academic life going through the maintenance program here. One thing that you'll notice going through this whole maintenance program, we spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with each other. So by the end of the program, we know almost every faculty member and every student that goes
You're
through
a
the program.
family.
You're a family. There's a camaraderie that you don't get out of this building, and it's just motivated me to share that with future technicians and future students out there.
Well, with what you're talking about, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about SAT?
So, SAC Club is our full form is Society of Aerospace Technicians, and so we are actually a club that is focused here in the maintenance department. However, we are open to everyone on campus. Taya is the vice president of the SAC Club. I'm the treasurer. And so what we do is outside of class, we provide a lot of opportunities for students to come in either to tutor them so that they need help for their classes, provide them with experience such as maintaining our current fleet that we have on our ramp, or building various projects. We've had 3 projects in the past where we built a battery simulator, a wing stand, a Mooney M20J cockpit, all of these projects that are used to help future students as they go through the program. It's all hands-on experience that we offer to the students both in and out. Our mission objective is so that we can teach both current maintenance students and students outside the maintenance world the regulation, the safety, the compliance that goes into aircraft maintenance, and it's skills that you can take to all parts of the industry. Well, one of my instructors, my tools instructors, was like, "You take the knowledge you have for detailing airplanes and to looking after airplanes, and you do that to your car is going to look pristine, and you're not going to have problems with it." And he was true. I've never had issues with my car because I understood how various things work. What we learn here, the knowledge translate. And so the SAT Club is kind of like a tank that allows students to come in and learn that information and then take it to various aspects of their lives, tool control, safety regulations, so on and so forth. We have various displays that have been done by students too.
Sure. Taya, how about you? What made you get involved with the SAT Club?
So originally I started as the club's photographer. So I would go around taking photos of like when we went to Duncan. And then slowly I kind of pushed the initiative that I wanted to be vice president, and it happened. I really liked the group because you start working on engines and a whole bunch of other stuff that you typically don't work inside the classroom. So like professors will come to us with a project like, "Hey, I want this done. Can you guys do it?" We'll be like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, it gives you more experience. I mean, who else can say that they actually like rebuilt this one engine, or they took a Mooney, they cut it in half, and they made an AR system with it? No one but the SAT Club. So that's one of the best things.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. SAT Club.
Getting there with the nuggets. So it's just great experiences, and we're all, like Sonish said, we're a family. Like we will sit back and we'll sometimes crack jokes with each other, or we'll just sit here and we'll help each other with a project just to make sure that we all are on the same page and understand everything.
Sure. What are you looking forward to once you graduate from Embry-Riddle?
That's a loaded question for me. I feel like every day what I want to do changes, because every time you go into the classroom, you do one thing, you're like, maybe this one's not for me. You know, my end goal was always NTSB, still is. Growing up as a kid, I would watch like the safety aircraft crashes and all that stuff, to the point where my mom gets annoyed with me because I'll be like, oh, it's this. And then later on, they're like, oh yeah, it was this one thing. And I'm like, wow, surprise. So, but currently right now, I have some people from Northern Grumman who want to mentor me after I graduate. So that's where it seems like I'll be heading over there, so I can at least get my feet wet, because everything comes down to what experience you have. No matter where you go, you have to have some form of experience. And being a college student, you don't really get that, like the Airbus experience or the Boeing experience that a lot of airlines want.
Sure. Yeah. So NTSB, yeah, I was going to ask you this earlier, and you reminded me about it. Your concentration is in safety. Is that because of your interest in NTSB, or just safety overall? What attracts you to the safety factor of what you do?
I have to say it has to be the old TV shows that I watch mostly, because just looking at them, it's always about troubleshooting. NTSB does that. They take a problem that they saw and they try to recreate everything, which is the same thing we do in aviation maintenance. You take a problem that you have, you try to recreate it, fix the problem, so later on you're like, okay, it must be the spark plugs, or, oh, the ailerons didn't come all the way down when they really need to. So it's just, everything that I've been doing goes hand in hand with each other, because I always try to set myself up for a bigger, brighter future, so that when I go to a company, they're like, okay, so you know safety, you know how to take the plane apart, and you know avionics. Yeah. You're a whole different package.
Taya, if you were talking to a middle schooler or a high schooler and you were giving them some tips about what to look for when they're interested in something like what you're doing, aviation maintenance science in college, what advice would you give them?
I would say stick to your dreams. One of the best places that you can actually talk to any kind of aviation person is going to air shows, which is the best place. You'll meet any kind of walks of life, from people who are pilots for transport, who do FedEx, anything will be there. And they're always willing to talk about their plane, what they do to it every day. And the mechanics do the same thing. You can just go up, talk to them like, hey, so what's it like working on this engine or working with this aircraft? And they will tell you every story that they have. It's the best place. Or just coming here to Embry-Riddle just to see, like, doing a tour, just watching.
To see what they offer. Yeah, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Sonish, same question to you.
Just like, the starter, just like Taya said, follow your dreams. If you know you have a temporal proclivity towards maintenance, taking things apart and putting it back together, do a lot of research. And so high school, middle school students, one thing I'll share that I didn't have the opportunity to do is, one thing I noticed here in the United States is from the age of 16 onwards, you're able to work, you're able to go to various industries and do certain like internships, apprenticeships. Take advantage of those. There are many companies. You may start off sweeping the hangar floors. I know I did when I came here. Took the machine shop floor, the hangar floors. You're gonna start there, but eventually, as you grow throughout where you are, they see your work ethics, they see your habits, they see your attitude. It builds character, and at the same time, it gets you as close as you are to the industry you want to work in, until you reach a point where, hey, you can make a declaration to yourself saying, hey, I like this. I want to do this. And so when the time is right, you go and join. So being able to go to these various places, like Taya said, air shows, great source of information, great source of understanding how the field is, how the industry is, and just seeing pure raw passion. It drives you. So school's great. Do keep on working hard on classes. Make sure the end goal is to get good grades and to get into the university you like or where you want to go. Stay connected with the industry. One thing that I've noticed going through my academic career is how interested the employers are when they hear students come to them asking questions, trying to know more about their field. Because then at that point it's like, hey, this kid is very interested in this industry. I'm going to do all I can to make sure that he has the full experience. I was able to narrow down stuff to business aviation because of that. The NBAA, the AOPA, AEA, all these various organizations. There are various chapters on aviation. Join one of them. They have great newsletters. You can read and make yourself knowledgeable about it. And that's pretty much it. Work hard, follow your dreams, and get yourself accustomed to the industry you want to be in. And in our case, aviation.
Yeah, Sonish and Tab, well said from both of you. And it's been great having you guys as part of the show today to be able to talk about it from student perspectives. I have gone over time, but I'm going to take a couple of more minutes because Eric and Neill, I wanted to cover two other things very quickly that I think are important for people to know about with regard to what your department offers. And one of them is Depart 145, where you actually work on active aircraft in terms of doing major overhauls. And I wanted to ask you to speak to that. And then I have one other thing before we wrap up.
So the Part 145, I think there's sort of a mystery that surrounds that. Whenever we say this to parents, we'll say we have an active Part 145 within our Part 147. It's sort of confusing, and if it's sort of like building the linguistics that Sonish talks about, where you're building up this vocabulary. But the FAA Part 145 is an actual engine repair station that we have within our curriculum. So you have to go through the entire power plant curriculum to get to the course where you work in an active engine repair and overhaul facility. And these engines are the same engines that we use on the fleet that trains our pilots. So it adds that extra level of intensity, an extra level of oversight, an extra level of responsibility that the students have to comply with. And the great part about having that within the curriculum is that you see students rise to that occasion, and we mitigate as many risks as we possibly can within there. But I'm proud to say that we've graduated generations of graduates that have gone through that FAA approved Part 145 engine repair station.
Yeah. As we wrap up, there's a term that's frequently used now: sustainability. How's that incorporated with what you guys are teaching in your maintenance, aviation maintenance department?
Yeah. So it's a great point. And sustainability, it's not just a buzzword anymore. Sustainability is going to be something that we're going to be talking about. It's clearly a current event, and it's going to be something that's going to be a trend pushed out into aviation. I think that a lot of the things that we're talking about that Neill had discussed, electric propulsion is going to be something that we're going to start to look into. And you'd asked originally, Neill, about what brought him into academia. For me, it was intellectual curiosity, and this is part of it. The sustainability question. You could only build a turbofan engine so big before you have to build the airframe so big. I mean, how big are these airplanes going to get? At some point, you're going to have to reduce that carbon footprint in the sky and start to utilize sustainable energy. And I think electric propulsion and lithium-ion batteries is going to be a big part of that. We're seeing that a lot already. Pipistrel is a company that's utilizing an electric airplane to do their basic flight training. And I can tell you right now that this department is actively looking into how that's going to affect the next generation of aviation and the next generation of aviators.
Yeah.
Neill, do you want to add to that, Neill? I know that we talked about it as a faculty a lot.
No, I would just parrot what you said.
Yeah. Well, while I'm with you, Neill, any closing comment from you for our aspiring young aviation professionals interested in a maintenance career?
I think Taya and Sonish said it better than I could say it. So you're hearing from you're hearing from them and their enthusiasm, and that speaks volumes to our new technicians, our new aspiring technicians. We cover take any sector out there, and not just in aviation, and it's all part of aviation now, from electronics to mechanical to even policy making. So.
Yeah. Eric
Thank
is
you
the
very
chair
much,
of the Yeah, absolutely. As the chair of the department, how about you take us home, as I always like to say?
Well, thank you very much, Vince. Yeah, so we're very pleased to have had you on campus. This is an outstanding event for us. We're very proud of what we do here. We're very proud of our graduates, our students. I think that for anybody that's interested in aviation, even if it's not Embry-Riddle, if you're interested in another program, go out, get that information. There is a passion behind it, and you're going to have to scratch that itch. And I love to tell students that will come into my office that are waning, that are maybe challenged, that look, the challenge is part of it. The challenge is part of going through this and overcoming some of the fear and anxieties that you might have about going into this industry. But it is just going to take you to places that you've never, ever thought of. If you were to tell me that I was going to go to the South Pole and fix airplanes, I would have, I think most people would have said I was crazy.
I would have told you to bring a parka.
I did bring a parka. But the places that these students are going to go and the things that they're going to see are just going to be amazing. So any student out there that's interested in doing it, you can always go to our website, erau.edu, and find out some more information and do your due diligence. But this is a fascinating place to study and an amazing place to springboard your career into aviation.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for having me here in your department on the campus of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. And I am, I can't tell you how impressed and proud I am. You know, I sound like a parent when I say that, but Taya Galon and Sonish Joseph, you guys have very bright futures ahead of you and are going to do great things. The passion that you have, as well as your knowledge and what you're learning is extremely impressive. So I wish the best to both of you as students here at Embry-Riddle. And Eric Jones and Neill Fulbright, I can't thank the two of you enough for your hospitality and offering this opportunity to tell a little bit about what you guys do and what you offer. And I say a little bit because it is quite the package that you guys offer here. So it's amazing. I love that term, the Harvard of aviation. That's absolutely right about this school, about this university. So I'd like to thank, and you guys please thank Dr. Butler for also his support in regards to this. And again, it's been a pleasure to be here. So without further ado, my name's Vince Mickens. This is All Things Aviation and Aerospace. We hope we gave you a little bit more insight about another aspect of the industry that is a great one. You guys take care. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.